At almost every important moment in the gospel, Jesus is at a table. He eats with sinners and tax collectors. He shares meals that cross the boundaries. He welcomes a woman who anoints him with expensive perfume, and he gathers with his disciples for the Last Supper. Tables are ordinary places. We eat, we talk, we share life. When Jesus is at the table, something more is happening. At the table, Jesus shows us who God is. At the table, Jesus shows us how God's kingdom works. Today, in our Table Stories series, we look at two table scenes, one from Luke 14, one from John 13. Together, they teaches us something very important, not just about leadership, but about the way Jesus treats people. In Luke 14, Jesus is invited to a meal. It is the home of a religious leader. It's a Sabbath. Everyone knows this is an important gathering. As people arrive, Jesus watches quietly. He notices how people walk into the room. He notices where they choose to sit. Some guests move quickly toward the best seats, close to the host, places of honor. It feels familiar, doesn't it? We may not fight for seats at a dinner table, but we still want to be noticed. We still want to matter. We still want to be seen. Then Jesus tells a simple story. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Jesus is not talking about table manners. He's talking about the human heart. He knows how easily we try to prove our worth, how easily we protect our status, how easily we forget where our value really comes from. Jesus offers another way, a way of freedom, the freedom of trusting God with our worth, the freedom of not needing to lift ourselves up. Now, we move to another table. It is the night before Jesus' death. The disciples are anxious. The room is heavy with emotion. Before anything happens, John tells us this. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. Jesus knows who he is. He knows his authority. He knows his relationship with God. And then Jesus stands up. He takes off his outer. He wraps a towel around his waist. He kneels down and he begins to wash the disciples' feet. This was the job of the lowest servant. dirty, and unnoticed. Yet, this is the place Jesus chooses. This is how Jesus treats people, not by ruling over them, not by demanding respect, but by serving them with love. After washing their feet, Jesus speaks. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Jesus is very clear. He does not say, admire me. He says, follow me. This is not just something to believe, it is something to practice. The way Jesus treats people is meant to shape the way we treat others. In our homes, in our church, in our community. At Jesus' table, people were welcomed, regardless of background or status. Jesus did not ask where someone was from before he loved them. So we ask ourselves, how do we treat people who look different from us? How do we treat those who are new to our community? How do we treat those who are not US citizens? These questions matter. One of our small groups, the Racial Justice and Reconciliation team, is studying The Color of Compromise by Zomar Tisby. This book explores the truth about the American church's complicity in racism. One important learning from this book is that racism is not only about personal prejudice, but about the combination of prejudice and power. When prejudice is supported by power, it becomes systematic evil, shaping laws, systems, and practices in our society that harm human dignity and exclude others. Also, our Wesley Wednesday groups are studying Unshakable Hope by Max Lucado. We are talking about God's promises. And last week, we talked about the devil, how evil often works in quiet ways, by playing on fear, by feeding pride, by stirring insecurity. When fear grows, we protect ourselves. When pride grows, we grasp for more. When power becomes a goal, human dignity is often lost. Together, these studies help us see more clearly how our communities and our world can become shaped by power games. Who has more? Who gets ahead? And who is left behind? But Jesus shows us a different way. True power is not about taking more for ourselves. It is about using what we have to serve others. Jesus calls us to see every person first as a neighbor made in the image of God. Humility makes room. Love moves toward others rather than away from them. Most of us will never wash someone's feet, but every day we have a chances to live this way. We serve when we listen before we speak. We serve when we show kindness without expecting credit. We serve when we make room for those who are often left out. Sometimes serving looks very small. Slowing down, being patient, choosing compassion instead of judgment. These ordinary choices are how Jesus' love becomes visible. At almost every important moment in the Gospels, Jesus is at a table, eating with sinners and tax collectors, sharing meals that cross the boundaries, welcoming those others pushed aside, and loving his disciples to the very end. At the table, Jesus shows us the heart of God. He chooses the lower place. He serves with love. He treats people with dignity and grace. May we choose the way Jesus treats people. May we share meals that cross the boundaries. May we make room where love is needed. And may we reflect Christ at every table we gather. Amen.